and without sails. They put the boat out into the Mediterranean, and they said, we won't kill him, we'll let the ocean kill him. Because how could you survive being cast out into the Mediterranean Sea in a boat with no way to propel it, no way to guide it anywhere? No oars and no sails. And it was put out into the Mediterranean. They thought they were rid of all of these people, because how could they possibly survive? That is one of the greatest miracles that I've ever read, and that's why I can't figure out why it never was included in the Bible. Because, miraculously, the boat made its way across the Mediterranean, and it came ashore on the coast of France. And the place that it came ashore at now is called Sainte Marie de la Mar, which means Saint Mary of the Sea. Sainte Marie de la Mar in France, on the coast of France. And it's an inlet there where there's grottos. And they said that when it came ashore, that they all took refuge in one of these grottos, these caves on the coast. That's one of the greatest miracles. How were they able to make it all the way across the Mediterranean with no way to guide the boat? It was almost as though it had to be divine intervention. Brought them to this little bitty place on the coast of France. Now that place today has celebrations about this, so they know about they call it a legend, but it has been the basis of the Christian church after that. Oh, I did another regression many years ago when I was first starting out that will be in another book down the road somewhere, where a woman regressed to a lifetime of a gypsy, and was in the 1700s. And they were going to a place where they would have their gathering, the gathering of the gypsies once a year. They would gather at this one place, and they would have their marriages, and they would have they were having any problems with law or within their communities, within the gypsies. They would have the judging. All of the things would take place at this once a year gathering. This gathering was at Sainte Marie de la Mar on the coast of France. And in the grotto, this is when I first heard of this legend, in this grotto there were statues, and it was a holy place, the statues of the three Marys. Now one of them was supposed to be Mother Mary, one was Mary Magdalene, and the other one was the third Mary, the one they claim that found the tomb empty. There has always been three Marys mentioned in the Bible. And one of the people in the stories of the Gypsies legend, I believe it's called Sarah, but she was like a maid, a hand servant to the women who were on board the boat. She is the one who went and got help for them after they came ashore there. So she is the patron saint of the Gypsies. And in that regression about the Gypsies, before they did any of the weddings, the celebrations, of everything that they were going to do in this once-a-year gathering, they would go to the grotto and have a candlelight ceremony where these statues are in the grotto. That the legend said that the boat came ashore. So even today, once a year, they have the celebrations in this place about this is where they all came ashore. So it is a definite place that can be visited. There's some people take tours there now to tell the story of what happened. But according to the story I had, that was where they came ashore. And then after resting and after several days, we left again, some of them did, in a much better boat, apparently. They weren't going to take off in the one that didn't have any sails or any oars. And Joseph of Arimathea, the 12 disciples, and some of the others, especially Mother Mary, they went in a much sturdier boat. They went to England. And this was the same place in England where Joseph had taken Jesus many times whenever they were gathering the 10 and he was studying with the Druids who had the university there at Glastonbury. They went there, and the very first church in the world, Christian church, was founded there at Glastonbury. Only they didn't call it a church because Jesus didn't and never intended for it to be a church. But it was the first place. And they said Lazarus went to France and he founded another church in France. And Mary Magdalene was responsible. I believe hers was the one in Spain. There was one in each of those countries, England, Spain, and France. It was founded by these groups, the ones who were exiled from Israel, and they thought they would die. Now, the church that they founded at Glastonbury, they never called it a Christian church because Jesus didn't want it named that. They called it the Way. The Way. And it was supposed to be based on Jesus' teachings. And the way it was supposed to have been done, the way he wanted it to be done, there was never supposed to be any one person over the entire organization. It was not supposed to be that way. They would meet when Jesus was doing his travels all over Israel and Galilee in those areas. They would meet at people's houses, different places, and different people would get up and they would lecture. They would talk about what they knew. They would talk about metaphysical teachings. They would show how to go into trance and how to meditate. They would show how to heal. These are the things that Jesus was doing, and this is what it was supposed to be. Just having meetings anywhere you wanted to, in people's houses or anything, and anyone could get up and share with the people there. There would never be any one person over the whole thing telling anybody what to do. This is the way it was supposed to be. And if you read the Bible carefully, you will see Jesus said this was the way it was supposed to be. There was not supposed to be anyone like a pope or bishops or anything that would bring down laws and say this is what you must do, you cannot deviate from this. That was not the way it was intended, and the Bible even says that. Of course, these are the parts that they don't ever talk about in church. Now, here again, I'm not trying to upset anyone's belief system. I'm just laying out what I have discovered, and I always want people to think about these things and make up their own minds. Never give your power away to anyone. Use your own mind to decide what it is you want to believe. But Joseph of Arimathea, Mother Mary, and the 12 disciples were all at the base, I guess you would say, the central base at Glastonbury. And they began to send out what we would call today missionaries all over the different areas. And they went out to share Jesus' teachings with those areas at that time. The reason why Joseph of Arimathea went there into England was not only because of his connection with the 10 mines, and he was very well known there, and the Druids knew him very well, but he was also connected with the ruling families in those areas, and ended up, I believe, that his descendants intermarried with a lot of these, so there was a lot of close connections. The area there at Glastonbury is right around Chalice Well, is where the very first church was. And that area today is called the holiest spot on earth. And when I was there a few years ago, there's an abbey at Glastonbury. It's in the town. And these bishops at the abbey know the story, and they believe in it. And they talk about the same things that I found about. The reason it is called the holiest place on earth is because Joseph of Arimathea and the disciples were buried there. John lived to be 100 years old, and he was buried there. But also Mary, the mother of Jesus, is buried there. And there is proof of that. The abbey said they have found carvings, so they know this is true. They are all buried there where the original church was in Glastonbury. So it is called the holiest spot on earth. And then the other churches developed in France, led by Lazarus, and then the one in Spain. And the church knows this because in the 1400s, years after this, see, this all occurred within a few years after the crucifixion of Jesus. The first official church by in Rome didn't come about till, I believed it was at least 200 to 300 years after the crucifixion, before the official Christian religion was decided and was formed and brought together. 200, 300 years after the original church was founded at Glastonbury, France, and Spain. The church knows about this because in the 1400s, these are official records. They had arguments about this. They wanted to settle it once and for all. Where was the first church founded? There was an argument whether the one in England or the one in France was the oldest. And it was decided it was the one in England. And it was only a matter of a year or two on the difference. So these are a matter of official records. They do know that this is where the actual Christian religion began, by the direct followers of Jesus at that time. Another interesting fact that's come out was they had the whole history of what happened to all of these people and what happened to each one of them. And some of the descendants went to Rome, and the first Christian church outside of that area in Rome was not the Vatican. It was actually founded in a palace a few blocks away from where the Vatican stands now. And at that time, it was being used as a refuge for the different Christians who were trying to escape the persecution at that time. Now, the building, I don't believe is there now. It may be ruins, but there is a plaque that says this was the first Christian church in Rome. They say if you go outside of the Vatican, there is also a sign that directs you to where it was. Arrows pointing down the street to where this first Christian church was. And it predates the Vatican by many hundreds and hundreds of years. So these are interesting facts that I found anyway, that what we've come across. But there was much, much more in that book called The Drama of the Lost Disciples. But these are important parts about what happened to all of these people. As I said last week, Mary Magdalene was a very important person, and she has been overlooked altogether because Jesus did have women disciples, and all of that has been removed from the Bible also. And she was a favorite. She was trained in Egypt, and she was an Egyptian priestess, had a great deal of Gnostic knowledge and metaphysical knowledge. And she was able to converse with Jesus because there were many people at that time, even his own followers, that he couldn't converse with. They didn't have the metaphysical background or the knowledge that he did.